Welcome back to the Reading Corner here on Dreamers Defy. We are currently reading Vengeful by AJ Parnell. We're up to chapter 14 today. If this is your first time with us, I'm going to suggest you go back to the introduction. This is an entire playlist. Start there. There are some warnings. There is some sensitive subject matter in the story. I want you to be aware of that. Go ahead and start there. Catch on up to where we are now. We'll wait for you. Go ahead. Order your own copy. Read along with us. And let us know in the comments what you think so far about the story. Who's your favorite character? Who's good? Who's bad? Who's not? Where do you think it's going? Let us know. In the meantime, we are about halfway through the book. We are on chapter 14, and we're going to get started on that right now. Chapter 14. Can I help you? Out of Leeds, Rogers and Martinez returned to Davies' office to see if they had missed anything on their first inspection and to complete questioning staff whom the other officers had missed interviewing. Even if it was a nice, calm office, Rogers hated being in a mental health joint. Trying to put aside his distaste for the place, he continued to look for clues as to who Miss Davies really was. Taking stock of his surroundings, Rogers analyzed every detail. It was easy to see that Miss Davies liked order. Things that had been cleaned up since he and Martinez had been called in to investigate the break-in, which meant that once the investigation team had left her office, Abigail made sure everything was back in its rightful place. He could also see that she had impeccable taste and liked unique and expensive things. However, what he did not see any signs of, which troubled him, was any semblance of friends, family, or a sense of who she really was past the obvious obsessive-compulsive type. If it had only been her office that lacked signs of connection to others, he would have been able to dismiss it. He himself didn't keep photos of his family or friends at work, just in case some perp came into the station with a grudge who might want to get revenge on him by going after his family. But at home, his wife had their place filled with photos of kids, their grandkids, and their friends, as well as little knickknacks that told of things she held dear. Now, at her apartment, however, it was just as it was here at Miss Davies' office. Rogers found it to be built to resemble a well-maintained life, everything in its proper order to give a sense of completeness. Yet it lacked substance and anything else that would tell who Abigail really was, where she had come from, or what, if anything, she cherished. Hurried footsteps sounded in the hall. Rogers looked up at Martinez, noting that his partner also heard them. Rushing through the door like a man on a mission, Michael Kitch burst in, oblivious to the two detectives on the other side of the room. He hurried over to Davies' desk and began rifling through the drawers. "Damn it," Kitch said under his breath, then looked up and spotted the detectives. The color promptly drained from his face. Clearing his throat, Rogers moved over to the desk. "Looking for something?" Kitch startled and bumped his knee. Martinez came over to join him, trying his best not to laugh. A clue to Miss Davies' disappearance, perhaps. Stammering, Kitch quickly explained. "Clues? No. I was just checking to see if Miss Davies had left a file that I'd been asking her for." Kitch slammed the drawer closed and hopped to his feet. "No luck, I see," Rogers added. Kitch pulled at his tie. "Afraid not." Patting down his jacket, Kitch straightened. "How about you, gentlemen? Have you found anything in regards to Miss Davies' whereabouts?" Pulling out a chair, Rogers sat down. It seemed like the administrator knew a hell of a lot more than he was previously stated. And the detective was going to find out exactly why the man was on pins and needles. Following his partner's lead, Martinez took a seat behind him, motioning for Kitch to sit. "Yeah, we haven't found much either. We'd like to ask you a few more questions if you don't mind." Looking like a cornered animal, Kitch glanced over at the open door, then back to the two eagerly waiting detectives. Of course, certainly. I want to be of any help that I can. However, I'm not sure what else I could add that I've not already told you from the earlier statement. Taking out his notepad, Martinez took a few moments to scan his notes. These questions are about Miss Davies' employment and how does she came to be here with you? Kitch began to squirm. You mean at the facility? It's an interesting choice of words, Rogers thought, as a knowing smile began to form on his lips. Yeah, here at the facility. A hint of red began to spread across Kitch's face as he tried his best to maintain a calm exterior. What would you like to know? Everything, Rogers thought. He had found little about Miss Davies. In fact, if he had not known better, he would have sworn the woman was in the witness protection program due to the oh-so-perfect piecing of her past. You were the one who interviewed Miss Davies, correct? Kitch answered curtly. That's correct. Looking up from his notes, Martinez piped in. And the one who conducted her background check? Getting defensive, Kitch clamped his hands together in front of himself. I did, and I can assure you Miss Davies came highly recommended. Rogers asked, Is that so? The sarcasm in his tone was clear. Yes, I would not bring someone on as faculty if they were not qualified. And if you'll forgive me, I'd like to ask what any of this has to do with my colleague's disappearance. That, Mr. Kitch, is exactly what we're trying to figure out, Martinez said. I don't understand. How does her getting a job here have anything to do with her going missing? Trying to read Kitch's expression, Rogers continued. Well, you see, from what little information we've been able to obtain, it appears that Miss Davies did not actually exist before coming to work for you here at the enchantment. Excuse me? Kitch stammered. Pulling out a search warrant, Martinez slid it over to Kitch. Mr. Kitch, we would really love to see all of those reports and records, as well as any qualifying licenses that Miss Davies gave you during her review. A slight tremor in his hand, Kitch took the paper from Martinez and began reading it. It may take a little while for me to get these things for you. The last thing Rogers wanted was to give the man time to create falsified forms that he and the police department would just have to waste time going through to prove they weren't real. He had a feeling that time was running out for Miss Davies. Mr. Kitch, let's not waste time, shall we? Feeling trapped, Kitch looked back at the door. You do understand that I have to talk with our attorneys to make sure that this warrant is in order. We do have privacy laws that... Losing his temper, Rogers got to his feet. That aren't going to save your ass when we find out that you hired Miss Davies without any legitimate qualifications or experience. Trying to keep the situation in check, Martinez quickly added, You should know that we've already done a complete background check on Miss Davies and have been able to punch holes in all of the information she gave you in regard to her attending a university anywhere in the States or passing a state regulating test to have the necessary licensing to practice here. Pinning Kitch with a look, Rogers said, So why don't we skip all the red tape and just get to how Miss Davies blackmailed you into giving her this job, shall we? Rogers had a pretty good idea what had happened between him and Abigail, and what she more than likely had on him, considering his emotional state, as he had been digging through her desk drawers. What he did not know was why Abigail had blackmailed Kitch into giving her this job, or what purpose her being here served. But he sure as hell was going to find out. And that ends chapter 14. Again, like I said before, what do you think so far? Are the detectives on to something? Does Kitch have anything to do with the disappearance? And what is the nature of his relationship with Abigail? What about Luke and Abigail? Who's crazy, who's not? Are the spirits real? So many questions. Tell us down in the comments before what you think. And in the meantime, we'll get to chapter 15 in just a moment. Thank you for hanging out here in the Reading Corner on Dreamers Defy.